Recently, I posted a video on my recipe for white chocolate, cranberry, and orange holiday cookies. In that video, I promised a gluten-free, vegan-friendly version for the same cookie. Well, here it is. The recipe is obviously not the exact same, but the results look and taste it. Regardless of food allergies and intolerances, we all deserve the same indulgences. For the ingredients, you'll need a gluten-free all-purpose flour, baking soda, salt, a plant-based butter if vegan, coconut oil or shortening, granulated sugar, brown sugar, aquafaba, which is the bean juice from a can of garbanzo beans, orange extract, orange zest, dried cranberries, and white chocolate chips, a vegan version if vegan. We're going to begin by preheating the oven to 375 degrees. And then you want to take 2 baking sheets and line them with parchment paper or silicone mats for an easy cleanup. And then set those aside. To a medium bowl, we're going to add 322 grams, which is 2 1/3 cup of flour. And this is gluten-free, all-purpose flour. You can use any brand that you like. 4 grams, 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And 3 grams, a half a teaspoon of salt. And then we just want to give this a quick stir just to make sure our ingredients are dispersed. And then set that aside. In a large mixing bowl or stand mixer, I'm actually using my stand mixer bowl here. When I make gluten-free bready, cookies, any kind of a product that has flour in it, I like to use my stand mixer because you need to whip it a lot more than you do with regular flour. So we have some plant-based butter here. We're going to add to this 76 grams, which is 1/3 cup. And just make sure that your butter is softened. Again, this is plant-based. You can use regular butter if you're not vegan. We're also going to add 73 grams, which is 1/3 cup of coconut oil. I didn't melt the coconut oil. You can just leave it in its solidified form. And for this recipe, I like the combination of coconut oil or shortening. If you don't have coconut oil, you can use shortening. And the butter, because the shortening in coconut oil solidifies when it cools and it provides structure for gluten-free cookies, which is necessary because sometimes gluten-free cookies can sometimes be crumbly or they just don't have any structure to them. So that's what we have in our bowl for the moment. We're going to attach the beater. I like the beater for this because it really smooths out the butter and the shortening, and we'll switch to a paddle once we add the flour. Turn your mixer on medium and let it run until the fats have combined and are smooth. Scrape down the bowl as necessary. If you're using an electric hand mixer, you're going to do the same thing. To the butter and coconut oil, we're going to add 100 grams, which is 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and 96 grams, which is 1/2 cup packed brown sugar. We're going to whip this again until everything is smooth. The fats and the sweeteners are all nice and blended in. Since I'm making a vegan cookie here, I am not using eggs. So instead, I'm using aquafaba. Aquafaba is the juice from a can of garbanzo beans. Garbanzo beans are the beans that you use to make hummus. So if you like to make hummus, save that juice. You can actually whip up aquafaba like egg whites. And a lot of times this is what's used in place of egg whites for vegan egg dishes. So we're going to add 135 milliliters, which is about 1/2 cup of the bean juice. And you're not going to be able to taste the bean juice in it. You may be surprised, but it will not be evident in the cookie. It doesn't have any flavor once it's cooked. And if you're not using aquafaba here, then you could use 3 eggs if you're not vegan. To this aquafaba mixture here, we're going to add a teaspoon of orange extract. I want a lot of layers of flavor in my cookies, and to do that, we're going to layer the orange in orange extract and in the zest, along with our, of course, white chocolate chips and our cranberries. So we're going to whip this again. Now, gluten-free flours need more liquid because it's denser than a regular flour. So you'll notice we have more liquid in this recipe than you might put in a regular flour cookie. So that we have a chewy cookie and that it's not dry and crumbly once the product is out of the oven. So we're going to whip this for about a minute to make sure everything is well blended and the aquafaba is mixed in with our fat and our sugars. Be sure to stop and scrape down the sides of the bowl as you're mixing. Look at that nice smooth texture there. It's just like a regular cookie combination. And notice no eggs, it's aquafaba. That's what makes it look so nice and fluffy, just like regular eggs. Okay, so I'm finishing up zesting my orange. So this is that second layer of flavor that we're gonna get in these cookies. We've got orange in the batter, and now we're gonna add the orange zest to the batter. And in fact, we're gonna switch out attachments. I don't want the orange zest to get all connected into those wires, so less wires on this one. So we're gonna go ahead and move to this one. So we're gonna add the zest of 1 orange, which should be about a tablespoon. All right, and now we're just gonna do a quick stir to mix the zest with the butter mixture. Okay, that's good enough. If you've used aquafaba before in cookies, sometimes you whip it with a little bit of cream of tartar, and that provides structure for the cookie. We don't have to do that in this recipe because we whipped it to provide structure when it was with the butter and the coconut oil. But also, we have lots of structure going on here. We've got the coconut oil, which is gonna solidify, and we have the baking soda to provide height. So we don't need to whip it. So that's a step we don't have to do. It makes life a little easier. So with the paddle attachment on, we're gonna add in that flour mixture slowly. And then we're gonna mix this for about a minute because we don't have gluten that was gonna develop. And we need to add enough mix to the flour because the flour needs time to absorb the liquid as well as the gum that is in the flour, and that provides structure for a gluten-free dessert. So that's another reason why we're gonna mix for at least a minute once we add in all the flour. Okay, all the flour is in. So now set your timer to 1 minute, let it go. Okay, let's take a look at our batter. Yeah, it's a nice, smooth cookie batter. Now you can remove the bowl from the stand. We're done with the mixer part. To this cookie batter, we're gonna add 160 grams, which is 1 cup of dried cranberries, and 120 grams, 3/4 of a cup, of white chocolate chips. If you're dairy-free or vegan, you can use vegan white chocolate like Enjoy Life produces a white chocolate chip, Lieber produces a white chocolate chip, and Pascha. Those brands are common brands to buy that produce white chocolate chips that are vegan or dairy-free. So look into those if you need an option. And then we're just going to stir in our chips and our cranberries. If you're having trouble with your parchment paper and you want it to stick to the pan and not be so bubbly up on the edges, then add a dollop of cookie dough to the corner of your pans. So now my parchment paper is flush to the pan because of the cookie dough sticking to it. I like to use a small cookie scoop for cookies, and so that's what we're using here. So just rake off the cookie dough at the top in the bowl, and then just drop them by spoonfuls on your pan. You want to place them about 2 inches apart as they will spread out in the oven. So we have 1 pan full of cookies now. We're gonna place them in the oven. We're gonna bake for 12 minutes or until the edges are set and the bottoms are golden brown. And in the meantime, we'll prep the other cookie sheets. First batch of cookies is out of the oven. So we're gonna let them cool for 2 minutes in the baking pan, and then we will remove them to a cooling rack to continue cooling. In the meantime, our next batch is going in. So the cookies remove very easily. In fact, you can remove them without even using the spatula. This batch of cookies, I made small cookies. This time of year, I think making small cookies are good, mainly because people are doing cookie swaps and you're eating so many cookies. It's nice to have a good bite of a good cookie, but a small bite. That way you can try more cookies. But if you want to make a large cookie, then just double the batter in your cookie scoop and then drop it on your pan. Just make larger cookies. And then you'll cook for 1 minute longer. And I like to spread mine out more. Instead of 3 across, I'm just gonna put 2 across. You'll also notice that this batter is wetter than a typical cookie with regular flour, and it's because gluten-free flour needs more moisture. So they're going to, as you can see, they turned out like a regular cookie, but they needed more moisture. So I'm going to show you what a large cookie looks like if that's what you would rather have, particularly at a different time of year, unless you really want to indulge in a large cookie. Check out our small cookies. And then our batch of large cookies. So notice this recipe makes good small or large. Depending on your preference, you can go with that. So for both of them, we'll take a look at the tops. They're pretty similar in color on the tops. Nice and golden brown on the bottom, not very dark. I don't want to dry these out, so I don't want them to be to overcook. So let's break into one of them. Yeah, nice chewy center there. I like that. They don't crumble. They have a nice crispy exterior. I like that you can see the fruit from the cranberries. You've got red from the cranberries, the white from the chocolate chips. Let's break open a big one. And on the inside, you can see the same. The white from the chocolate chips and the red from the cranberry. You can even spot little bits of orange from the zest. They look very much like my regular cookie version with a few different ingredients using regular cookie ingredients. So if you wanted to add a flair to your holiday cookies here, melt some white chocolate according to the package directions. You could use a piping bag and pipe them on. I'm a terrible piper, so I like to just kind of go rustic and use just a fork. And then I, of course, I have a cookie tray under my cooling rack to catch all of the chocolate that falls underneath. Okay, and then you can just do some swishes of white chocolate over your cookies. And that adds a little bit of holiday flair. It looks like you put a little bit more effort into making your cookies. Or you can leave these plain and you don't need to add any chocolate if you don't want to. So there you have it, our small, large, gluten-free, vegan-friendly holiday cranberry orange cookies. This is totally a holiday all around. Store these cookies at room temperature for a few days. They will dry out as they sit. However, if you've never tried it, you can always add a piece of regular white bread to a cookie jar with the cookies, and the moisture in the bread will keep the cookies from drying out. Or, as I usually do, you can store them in a freezer bag in the freezer until you're ready to consume them. Then they'll last for months, if you can make them last that long. My house smells like the holidays with cookie baking and citrus smells. We really enjoy these cookies and hope you do as well. If you're not gluten-free or vegan, please check out my recipe for these same cookies using standard cookie ingredients. I have the recipes for both cookies in the description below the video. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing. Until next time, bake a batch of holiday cookies and go bake the world.